Okay, something else to consider with weight loss is macronutrient ratios. What's a macronutrient? A macronutrient, let's change the color here. Okay, a macronutrient is carbohydrate, fat, and protein. These are the three types of macronutrients. So we've got carbs, fats, and proteins. Now, most people, from a macronutrient ratio perspective, are way off. A lot of people are 60 to 70% carbohydrate in their total daily caloric intake. As a matter of fact, I think it was the last couple of decades we've been looking at quantities of total calories consumed by U.S. citizens, and it's of this. So think of it like this: 50%. Sorry, give me a minute here. Let's fix that image. So 50% of total calories, this is in the U.S., come from wheat, which is largely a little bit of protein, but a lot of it of carbohydrate. And most of these 50% of total calories, again, in the U.S., come from wheat, come from processed, right? Processed wheat, which again is predominantly carbohydrate. So that's just wheat. Then we add in the other carbs, the sugars, the fruits, the juices, etc. So 60 to 70% of most people's total caloric intake in a day is carbohydrate. And then everybody's scared of fat, especially if they're trying to lose weight. So people generally tend to gravitate to low fat, right? Low fat diets, which are one of the worst things you can do for weight loss, by the way. And then the protein is somewhere in the middle. So we get, 60%. Here we might have 10%. Okay, and then here we might have the other 30% of total calories. And this is imbalanced. Remember, in nature loves balance. Mother Nature always loves things to be balanced out. So 60, 30, 10 is the furthest from balance. What we really want to shoot for is 33, 33, 33. What I call the rule of thirds. Okay, we're shooting for, in our macronutrient ratios, a third of our calories from carbs, a third from fat, a third from protein. Now, a lot of doctors will tell you that's way too high in protein, you'll damage your kidneys. I would disagree on many levels, both clinically, what I've seen in my practice over the years, and I would also disagree that the research doesn't hold this out to be true. Now, if you've got pre-existing kidney disease, and your doctor has said you've got protein leaking into your urine, it might be a different story. We're not talking about people with late-stage kidney failure that have a potential issue with protein leakage. We're talking about the average person. Protein's not hard on the kidney when we have it in balance and if we're eating the right kinds of protein. So, again, your carb-fat protein ratio should be a third, a third, a third. Most people are somewhere in the 60 to 70% range on their carbs. Remember what happens to excessive carbs. Excessive carbs are converted into something called a triglyceride. Now, what is a triglyceride? Triglycerides are fat, and this is how your body stores fat. So triglycerides are produced by excessive carbs, and this is how your body then takes those triglycerides and stores them in fat cells. And this is why a lot of people that eat low-fat diets end up having weight gain, because their body is really efficient at converting carbohydrate into fat, because remember, carbs can be instant energy. We can take those carbs, that glucose molecule, we can convert it into energy, but if we're not expending that energy, we're going to save it. Our bodies are really good at saving. So it will convert those carbs into triglycerides and store them as fat, and this is one of the reasons why low-fat diets are terrible ideas for most people. This is another one of the reasons why you see the keto diet popularity. Keto diets generally are very high fat, right? They're high fat diets. Low carb diets, generally speaking, a keto diet is going to get 40 grams of carbs a day. That's kind of the upper echelon of quantity of carbohydrates in a day on a keto diet. Well, what is that? If you understand basic math here, 1 gram of carb equals 4 calories. Okay? So I said 40 grams. So 40 times 4 is 160. So that's only 160 calories total from carbohydrates a day. That's imbalance. Now, a lot of people do keto really well, but if you stay on keto really long term, you actually can begin to start creating some imbalance. So this is one of the reasons why I like this rule of thirds. 1 gram of fat is equal to 9 calories, and 1 gram of protein is equal to 4 calories. And we haven't talked much about alcohol, but alcohol, which is not really considered a macronutrient, but a lot of people imbibe with alcohol. Alcohol is 7 calories. 7 calories per gram. And so there's another one of those weight loss things that crushes your weight loss goals is drinking. If you want to lose weight and you're struggling, quit drinking that glass of wine every night. If you've been told to drink a glass of wine every night for, red wine for your heart, your cardiologist didn't train in nutrition, and they're not real smart in that way. And what they're really doing is they're justifying the use of alcohol on a daily basis. And if you're overweight, you're going to have a real hard time when you have that alcohol coming in for several reasons, not just because of the calories, the 7 calories per gram, but alcohol is also an endocrine disruptor. Okay, so that's your macronutrient ratios should be about an equal third. So if you haven't ever counted your macronutrient ratios and you're way off, you're heavy carbohydrate, middle fat, middle protein or low fat, you need to really look at bringing a better balance back to those ratios for weight loss, for healthy weight loss. And again, understand the premise of everything I'm talking about tonight is healthy weight loss, not quick fix. I got 2 weeks before my wedding and I need to squeeze myself into my bikini for my honeymoon weight loss. I'm talking about long-term, consistent weight loss where you actually have a chance at being successful indefinitely, right? Not quick stuff, because quick fixes generally backfire. Now let's talk about some dietary causes of weight loss resistance that don't have as much to do with calories, but have more to do with, so there's calories. Understand that calories are the thermal or heat generating, thermal effect of food. But food has a hormonal effect. And this is what's oftentimes missing from weight loss programs, is that food has a hormonal effect that people forget about, or they don't know about, or they don't think about. And let me give you some examples. Grain. We'll just use gluten as one example. Gluten's found in grain can cause low thyroid. That's an example of how food causes a hormonal effect downstream. And of course, the thyroid hormone, producing adequate quantities is what sets your basic metabolic rate. Remember that term we used back here a minute ago, BMR? Okay, that's this term right here. Your thyroid is what sets the stage for your BMR. So if your thyroid is disrupted as a result of you consuming the wrong kind of food, and in this example, gluten is what we're talking about, gluten sensitivity is one of the top causes of low thyroid function, then it's going to affect your thermal effect of food will be affected as a result of your thyroid altering your basic metabolic rate. And again, that's just one example. So we've got, grain as a food group, and if you are not familiar with this, you need to go get a copy of my book, No Grain, No Pain. And if you're on a budget and you can't afford it, go to the library, because it's in every major library across the country. Get you a copy and read it so that you understand how grain can impact your hormone levels, among other things. And we'll talk a little bit more about it. Sugar. Remember what sugar does. Sugar converts to fat. As I said a minute ago, triglycerides. Sugar converts to fat. Sugar also has a hormonal effect, and that effect is on insulin. And let's talk about that for a minute, because I think it's important to understand. We're going to shrink this down and give me a little bit of room to draw. So, actually, let's do it right here. Let's just draw right on the board so you can see well. Let's erase this. Because grain, sugar, and dairy and excessive carbs all do what I'm about to show you. So you've got, and this is just purely from a carbohydrate perspective. Carbohydrates are converted into glucose. Okay, glucose kind of looks like this. It looks like a stop sign, only think of it as a microscopic stop sign. It's on the molecular level. So glucose hits your bloodstream. Okay, and once it's in your bloodstream, it sends a message to your pancreas, and your pancreas is then supposed to respond to that by producing insulin. Okay, insulin's job, okay, is it goes to your cell and it messages your cell. It sends a message through your cell, and there's this doorway on your cell. It's called a GLUT door. It's also known in layman's terms as a glucose door, but this insulin comes in, sends a message through your cell, and it opens up that door so that glucose can now come into your cell, and this is how we make energy. Your cell will break that glucose down. It will break the carbon bonds down and strip off the hydrogen, and it will store that hydrogen up as a form of potential energy to make ATP. So if you've ever heard that term, if you remember biology class, and you remember that word, that term ATP, that's what we're talking about. That's what energy is in your body. So we need glucose to make that energy, to make that ATP. So too much glucose, right, puts a lot more pressure on the pancreas to make more insulin. And what happens over time is people become resistant to that insulin. They start to develop insulin resistance, because the more sugar you have floating in your bloodstream, the more insulin you have to produce. The more insulin you have to produce, there's a little antenna that sticks off the surface of your cells, and it's called an insulin receptor. Okay, that insulin receptor, over time, the more insulin you make, that insulin receptor becomes less and less receptive to the insulin you make. That's what insulin resistance is. This is very well documented, and this is what leads to diabetes. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.